7 spine-chilling secrets exposed by Ring cameras. Terrifying moments you won't believe existed. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows across Willow Creek, Karen slipped into her worn apron at the diner. The comforting chatter of the regulars faded as she grew tense, a sharp unease prickling at the back of her neck. Fumbling with her phone, she steadied herself. The Ring camera notifications had begun, and despite her better judgment, she couldn't ignore the urgency buzzing in her pocket. It felt like a promise, protection, a shield against the world outside. At first it was minor, dark figures darting past, perhaps just kids playing pranks. But as the beeps flooded in, a sickening dread entwined with her, her heart pounding like a war drum as the minutes crawled by. No, those movements weren't innocent. They lingered too long, too aware of her every routine. With every notification, a chill crept deeper into her bones, snaking its way around her spine. "You're being ridiculous," she murmured to herself, but her instincts screamed otherwise. Shadows flitted along the edge of her perfectly manicured lawn, whispering secrets she didn't want to hear. The once vibrant flowers in her garden looked grief-stricken, petals torn, and her car bore scratches that dug deep, a reflection of the unease that lodged itself deep within. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the nights wore on, paranoia became her unwelcome companion. Each smile from her neighbors was laced with suspicion, each word a thin veil over venomous intent. The warmth of her community transformed into a shroud of deceit, suffocating her through calculated familiarity. Her evenings slipped into a routine of frantic glancing, her spaces cursed with sounds that could only belong to phantoms. Was that a whisper? Footsteps just beyond the lined trees? The air thickened when one evening, an unthinkable horror unfurled. No warnings, no signs. Her kitchen erupted into flames, a monstrous blaze casting ghoulish shapes in the darkness. Smoke enveloped her like a shroud as she yanked her children away from their dreams, their wide eyes mirroring the terror blooming in her own heart. Sirens wailed in the distance, but they brought no comfort. Only the sweet scent of ash and desperation haunted her home. Days turned into nights, and Karen resolved to confront the terror lurking just outside. Goosebumps prickled her skin as she replayed the footage, each frame isolating the monster she previously trusted. Fear closed in around her like a vice. Would this neighbor, this friendly face she once shared coffee with, turn out to be the hunter? And she the prey? As she stepped outside, her pulse thundered in her ears, the cool night air biting at her skin. She couldn't shake the feeling of prying eyes, even in the sanctuary of her home. Just then, a flicker on her phone caught her attention, a notification, chilling her to the core. There, outlined against the wavering shadows of her yard, stood a figure, cloaked in darkness, waiting, watching. The tension in her chest tightened, molding into pure dread. She swallowed hard. Was this the moment she would finally unearth the truth? The flickering lights amplified her dread as she gripped her phone tighter, heart hammering. This threat was waiting, and she couldn't close her eyes any longer. Karen's hand shook as she stared at the screen, the grainy image barely revealing the features of the figure standing in her yard. A chill crawled along her spine, and instinctively she backed away from the window. Part of her wanted to flee, to retreat to the safety of the diner, where the warmth of the grill and the chatter of customers shielded her from this encroaching darkness. But another part, the stubborn, protective part, urged her to confront the shadow. Gathering all her nerve, she approached the front door. Every creak of the floorboards beneath her felt like a scream, echoing her unease. With each step, visions of what lay beyond the threshold raced through her mind. The sheer terror of opening the door and facing the unknown. What if it was just a misunderstanding, a neighbor with too much time on their hands? Or what if it was the lurking predator that haunted her dreams? With a trembling hand, she turned the doorknob, the metal cold against her skin. As she flung the door wide open, the porch lights cast a sickly yellow glow, illuminating the area in front of her. Silence hung in the air, thick and oppressive. Whoever had been there was now gone, melting back into the darkness like a phantom. The shadows danced and swayed under the flickering light, mocking her fumbling resolution. "Hello?" Karen's voice wavered, lingering in the eventide like a candle struggling against a gust of wind. No response. She took a step outside, the chill night air wrapping around her like a tightening noose. She scanned the yard, the once familiar landscape now cloaked in sinister unease. The neighbor's house stood a few feet away, its windows dark and lifeless, the door securely shut. No signs of life, no lights flickered on or off. The ring notification buzzed again, and Karen's heart raced. Frantically, she opened the app. A new video feed flickered to life, showing her front yard from the perspective of the camera. Her blood ran cold as she watched the figure reappear, edging closer to her home in the darkness, shoulders hunched, moving slow and deliberate. Every inch it crawled forward felt like an eternity, each second laced with her rising dread. Suddenly, Karen felt the tickle of familiarity in the way it moved. It was unmistakable. She had seen that gait in her neighbors, the subtle shift of weight that screamed comfort but carried a sinister undertone. Her stomach churned, and panic turned the world around her into a feverish haze. She stumbled back into the house, slamming the door shut and locking it, though deep down she wondered if any lock could keep this unseen threat at bay. The notifications flickered incessantly, each one more urgent than the last. Another movement outside. This time she caught a glimpse of a face, partially illuminated, eyes glinting with something dangerously curious. She was not just imagining this. There was a conscious awareness about the intruder, an intent that was crawling closer. With shaky hands, she grabbed her phone to call for help, but her mind went blank. The fear of drawing this malevolence into her home struck her like an icy wave. Suddenly the power went out, plunging her into a suffocating darkness. In that instant, all secure spaces dissolved. Her breath quickened. The phone's screen was her only light. Holding it high, she peered into the void, praying for a flicker of hope, but finding only creeping shadows contorting into grotesque forms. Then came a knock, soft yet firm, resonating through the silence of her isolated world. Each rap sent fresh adrenaline surging through her veins, scarcely allowing enough time for her mind to grasp the implications. Who was it? What did they want? The reality of her situation sank in. She wasn't just watched, she was hunted. And with that thought pressing down on her, she knew that the horrifying truth was only beginning to unravel. As she steeled herself to answer the door, the whisper of someone saying her name echoed in her mind. Karen. Would she dare open it? What awaited her beyond? Could she trust her instincts, or had fear fogged her judgment? The clock was ticking, and the line between safety and danger blurred dangerously thin. The knock came again, louder this time, reverberating through the bone-chilling quiet. Karen. The voice slid into her mind like ice, crawling beneath her skin. She could almost reach out and touch the sinister presence that hovered just beyond her door. Karen's heart thumped like a drum in her chest, and she felt a cold bead of sweat trickle down her back. She couldn't just stand there, frozen in a tableau of terror. Every second stretched into eternity. If she didn't act, who or what was outside would surely act first. Adrenaline surged, igniting her senses. "Who's there?" she called, feigning strength she didn't feel. Her voice cracked, breaking the silence. The only reply was a rustle in the bushes, sharp and decisive. Was it the wind, or was something moving closer? With trembling hands, Karen stepped back from the door, hearts pounding against her ribcage as she glanced around the living room for anything she could use as a weapon, something to defend herself. Karen. The voice was even closer now, its familiarity almost taunting. Let me in. What had she done to deserve this? The shadows conspired against her, receding and advancing as panic swirled inside her. Her neighbors, those she thought she knew, those whom she had shared casual hellos with, could be the one behind this vile game. But who? Another knock, harder this time, splintering the fragile veil of her sanity. Fear coiled around her heart like a vice. She had to make a choice. One thought crept forward. This voice, its rhythmic cadence, was oddly reminiscent of someone she knew too well, and that realization sent waves of nausea rolling through her stomach. She had to see. Lifting her phone, she switched on the flashlight, its beam cutting through the shadows. She edged towards the door, careful not to make a sound. Peering through the peephole, she felt her breath catch as she fought rising bile. The figure was unmistakably familiar. It was Vanessa, her neighbor. Those bright eyes, that sly smile lurking beneath the misery. But tonight, it seemed to hold an edge of madness. "Open the door, Karen," she hissed, eyes wild, as if she were a wolf caught in a trap. "I need you to let me in." Karen's knees quaked. Why would Vanessa be in such a desperate state? They'd shared friendly coffee chats just last week, but this was a different world. The darkness beyond the door pulsed like a living entity, and whatever fears resided there seemed to feed off the tension in the air. "Why?" Karen managed to croak out, still holding the phone tight, ready to call 911 at any moment. "Because I don't have much time. They're coming for you both." The urgency in her voice made Karen hesitate, and with it came a fleeting sense of hope and terror intertwined. Was this a warning, or was she being pulled deeper into a trap? "I can't trust you," Karen shouted back, her voice filling the void. She sprang back as if burned, the weight of her fear pressing heavier than ever. "Then you'll be trapped with them. You have to believe me." Vanessa's voice cracked, a raw edge slicing through. The primal urge for survival clashed with the instinct not to give in to what felt like lunacy. Just then, the unmistakable sound of shuffling echoed from the corners of her yard, slow, deliberate, a sound she thought she'd only imagined. Karen's heart raced. Her senses accelerated. She could feel a presence slipping in and out of the shadows. Before another thought could form, the ground outside her window vibrated with a low growl, like a creature uncoiling from the depths of the night. The terror that had been simmering flared up, settling deep within her bones. She took a step back, but the pounding on the door persisted, each hit sounding less like an invitation and more like a threat. What had she brought upon herself? "Let me in!" Vanessa screamed, her eyes wide, reflecting pure desperation. The barricade of wood separating them felt flimsy now, almost non-existent. Time felt suspended, like a fragile thread waiting to snap. Karen stood in that moment, heart thundering, faced with the decision, to trust or to lock herself away forever. But whatever was outside, the unseen horror creeping through the night, was growing closer, waiting for her answer. Would she give in? Would she open the door and risk her very life? Outside, the shadows seemed to laugh, blending into the darkness, teetering on the edge of revelation. The walls felt like they were breathing, pulsing in time with the wild drumming of Karen's heart. Each knock reverberated deep in her gut, an animalistic fear clawing its way to the surface. There was no logic left in her mind, only the primal instinct to survive. "Let me in." Vanessa's voice clawed at the door, her urgency turning into something guttural, a mix of terror and desperation that made Karen's skin crawl. Why was this happening? What could possibly be outside that was so much worse than the woman she thought she knew? Shadows from the yard writhed like restless spirits, and the growling echoed again, this time sending a volcanic tremor through her. Karen's phone trembled in her grip, the flashlight beam flickering as her hands shook. The anxiety fogged her thoughts as she tried to make sense of the chaos unfolding outside. Vanessa had always seemed harmless, but now, that madness in her eyes seemed to promise danger. "Karen," the voice slithered through her mind, "you need to wake up." What did that mean, wake up? From what? Before she could unravel the meaning, her phone buzzed violently. A text message flashed on the screen. It was from Vanessa. "They're not what they seem." She had to make a choice, in or out, trust or dread. With the pounding at her door escalating into a furious fit, Karen sensed time slipping away. The thing outside, the beast hidden in the shadows, seemed to be growing impatient. "Say something." Vanessa's voice broke, the sound sharp and full of dread. A strange stillness filled the air for a fleeting moment. The growling stopped, replaced with a tense silence that was more unnerving than the noise had been. It was as if whatever plagued the night was waiting, biding its time. Karen's breath quickened. If she didn't act, she might never know what was behind that door. I want to help," she shouted, her voice betraying her hesitation. "But I need you to explain." Another laugh echoed from the shadows as Vanessa's expression shifted, teeth bared like a wolf's, body now steeped in an unnatural light that made her appear almost ethereal. "Help," she sneered, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Help yourself. They've already marked you." Just then, a sharp glint caught Karen's eye through the peephole. She gasped and stepped back, heart thundering. A figure emerged, wreathed in darkness, but its presence felt palpable, like doom manifesting. They stood just beyond the threshold, silent and still, but watching. A familiar voice called out from the shadows, chilling her blood. "Karen, open the door. It's your only chance." Who was that? Why did it sound like Tom, her longtime best friend? His voice should have been a comfort, but the cold dread in her stomach twisted sharply. It had sounded like a warning wrapped in a sinister echo. "No! Get away from her!" Vanessa shrieked, suddenly breaking down. She slumped against the door, her frenzy fading into tears. "They're coming for us both!" Karen could feel her skin prickling in panic. Whatever was lurking outside wasn't just a figment of her imagination. It had drawn the line, and she stood at the brink. The pounding started again, relentless now, shaking the very foundation of her home. Time crawled, and with each muffled thump a decision loomed larger than herself. She clutched the doorknob, fingers trembling. Would she dare? Would she open the door and confront the darkness? As she twisted the knob, the door creaked open just a crack, and chaos erupted. There, as the door inched ajar, the growls morphed into a chorus of inhuman howls, a surge of darkness spilling through the crack. Pulled by an unseen force, the door slammed wide, revealing a chaos she couldn't comprehend. In that moment, every shred of reason crumbled. Figures poured in like a tide, shadows twisted and contorted, walking on all fours, eyes shining wickedly in the moonlight. Karen screamed as a hand reached for her. The only escape was behind her, but terror held her in place as the horror she had dreaded became tangible. And then, darkness enveloped her. Who would she become in their grasp? Would survival even be possible? Karen felt cold, clammy hands wrap around her wrists. Panic surged through her veins like wildfire. Struggling to free herself only made it worse. She was ensnared in a grip that seemed to quench her soul. The darkness pressed in, alive and hungry, as if it had birthed itself from the very shadows she'd feared. "I told you, they've marked you!" Vanessa's voice slashed through the chaos. It offered no comfort, only a reminder of the betrayal lurking behind familiar faces. Fear twisted in Karen's gut. What did Vanessa mean? What had she gotten herself into? With a frantic jerk, Karen turned her head, struggling against the encroaching darkness. Shapes loomed in the murk. Twisted silhouettes contorted at angles no human should ever hold. Their features were lost in shadow, yet a glint of something fierce sparkled in their eyes. The growling chorus roared louder now, a tidal wave of menace that threatened to drown her. Suddenly, the figure from outside lunged toward her, its hand clawed and monstrous. "Tom," she whispered, disbelief staining her voice. But the face that emerged was not her friend. It morphed into a gargoyle, a visage of terror that filled her with dread. "Karen," it hissed, mouth stretching impossibly wide in a grotesque grin. "You chose the wrong door." The walls vibrated, and the room seemed to twist at the edges, reality bending in ways that defied logic. She knew she needed to wake up. The voice still echoed in her mind, the warning that thrummed beneath layers of fear. What was happening? "Run!" Vanessa's voice commanded, but Karen's legs felt rooted to the floor. Every muscle screamed for release, but her body betrayed her. From the chaos, the shadows began to congeal, forming a single swirling mass that swept toward her. They come for the lost, the creature crooned, lurching towards her, its breath hot and rancid. You belong to us now. Desperation clawed at her throat. Sinking deep into primal instinct, she surged forward, breaking free of the grip that suffocated her. The darkness flared around her, but she forced her way through, bolting past twisted limbs and menacing laughter. "Karen, don't leave me!" Vanessa cried, scrambling against the tide of shadows. But Karen couldn't look back. Each heartbeat screamed for survival, for freedom, for life beyond the doors she had opened. With every ounce of strength, she hurtled herself toward the nearest window, the escape seeming a glowing hope amidst overwhelming despair. Shards of glass glittered like tiny stars, beckoning her with silent promises of safety. "Crash through," a voice urged. Was it Tom's or something worse? But she had no time to ponder. The growls echoed anew, feral and insatiable, snapping at her heels. With one last surge, she threw herself toward the window. Glass exploded outward, slicing through the air, showering her in a deadly rain. She felt the sting of pain and triumph mingle as she flung herself into the night, breath rushing in and out like wounded wings. But she wasn't free yet. The world stretched before her, dark and terrifying, a landscape lit only by the slivers of moonlight darting through treetops. She landed hard, the ground firm beneath her. The darkness surged behind, like a horde of nightmares refusing to relent. Panic flooded in. The woods encircled her, threatening to swallow her whole. She had escaped one terror only to tumble headlong into another. Would she find safety in the trees, or become a lost element in this nightmare she had unleashed? Fingers of darkness emerged from the shadows, grasping, reaching. The whisper of a familiar voice flared in the night air. "You can't run forever, Karen." What twisted fate awaited her in the wilderness? Would the shadows hunt her down, or could she find a way to fight back against the enveloping doom? With her heart pounding, she took a shallow breath and dashed deeper into the darkness, knowing one truth: the journey was far from over. Karen sprinted through the woods, branches clawing at her arms and tearing at her clothes. The crisp night air felt alive, saturated with a malevolence she could almost taste. She stumbled over roots, her legs weak but driven by pure adrenaline. It was hard to tell where the trees ended and the darkness began. The growling behind her turned guttural, each sound more menacing than the last. They weren't just shadows anymore. They were hunters, and she was their prey. With every receding footstep, the faint hope of safety faded into the dread that loomed incessantly. Panic pulsed through her, a drumbeat urging her to run faster, to escape the growing cacophony that chased her down like hounds. "Where are you?" she gasped, voice hoarse, desperate for a response. But the silence was suffocating. She dared to glance back, heart leaping into her throat at the sight of dark shapes breaking through the treetops, their eerie forms undulating like smoke. They whispered her name, their voices a chilling chorus that rattled against her skull. Each syllable dripped with malice, echoing in the depths of her mind. Karen tore around a cluster of trees, feeling the bark scrape against her cheek and her clothes fall away like useless baggage. She couldn't stop. With each pulse of fear, she felt something lurking behind, waiting for weakness. Then she spotted it, a faint glow in the distance flickering like a ghostly lantern. A cabin. Hope mingled with dread. Would it offer safety or more horror? She made her choice, breaking through the underbrush and darting toward it. The wooden door hung ajar, seemingly welcoming. But as she crossed the threshold, a chill swept through her. The air smelled stale and damp, as if the place had been abandoned long ago. Shadows danced in the corners, stretching and retreating like whispers of long-lost souls. "Tom," she called, the name hanging heavy in the air. Her heart sank as the echo faded into a chilling silence. She stepped further inside, the wooden floor creaking under her weight. An ancient rocking chair sat in the corner, swaying unnaturally as if someone had just left its embrace. Shivers ran down Karen's spine. Suddenly the door swung shut behind her with a resounding thud, locking her in. She turned, eyes wide, mouth dry, disbelief and dread warring within her. No, no, no. The thick walls seemed to close in around her. The shadows swirled thicker than before, clotting in the corners. Visions flickered in her mind. figures with twisted features and eyes glowing like coals, creeping closer. Were they the same ones from the woods? Had they been waiting for her here all along? Breath coming quick, she rushed to a window, but it was sealed tight, glazed over with grime and decay. "Let me out!" she screamed, pounding at the glass. But the gloom just watched, undulating, as if savoring her fear. Then she noticed something on the wall, a mirror cracked and cobwebbed. It was smeared with a mottled darkness, but as she approached, she caught a glimpse of herself. Only, what returned the gaze was not her reflection. It was Vanessa, eyes wide, mouth agape in a silent scream. Panic surged again. If she was here, what had happened to her? Had she been taken too? "Vanessa!" Karen cried, reaching out, but the reflection only warped further. The glass trembled, distorting, consuming the echoes of her voice. Dark tendrils reached from the edges and she staggered back, tripping over the chair as it erupted into wild laughter. "What do you want from me?" she whimpered, heart racing in terror. The shadows coiled around her feet, whispering promises of despair, sinking low, pulling at her very essence. The mirror's surface shimmered again. This time it flickered brighter, revealing fragments of other faces, eyes wild with fear. Karen recognized them, friends, acquaintances she hadn't thought of in years. Terrors lost to time, all drawn into this cursed space. And then realization struck her. She was not just running from them. She was becoming one of them, an echo of anguish caught in the dark. With a desperate scream, she lunged toward the door, but the ethereal grasp of darkness surged toward her, hungry. The shadows were reaching, yearning for her soul. Would she be lost forever? As she clawed at the door, the growls returned, louder and closer. The race against the inevitable was minutes away. But then the mirror spoke, a voice low and tempting. "Join us or save yourself." What choice would she make? In that fraught moment, the darkness pressed closer, eager to claim her. Would she succumb or fight back and confront her worst nightmares? Questions loomed, heavy in the air, as Karen prepared to make her final stand against the encroaching terror. The air inside the cabin thickened, a suffocating blanket of dread wrapping around Karen. She could feel the shadows creeping, swirling like a storm, pulling her closer to their wicked embrace. Her heart thundered, a frantic drumbeat that drowned out the whispers threatening to envelop her. "Vanessa!" The name clawed at her throat. She turned back toward the mirror where her friend's eyes stared back, full of terror and an urgency that broke her heart. It was a look that begged for help, but she had no way to reach her. The din of growls grew louder, reverberating through the walls, each sound a reminder of the very real danger lurking nearby, waiting for her to falter. "Join us or save yourself." The voice from the mirror twisted in her mind, seductive and sinister. Karen felt her resolve cracking. What did that even mean? Was there a way out? And what would happen to Vanessa if she did? Fearing the shadows would consume her thoughts, she shoved all doubt aside. Gathering what was left of her courage, she snapped her gaze away from the mirror. She had to escape. She couldn't let them take her too. With trembling hands, she rushed to the door, pounding against it with all her strength. "Help! Let me out!" Each strike was met with mocking silence, and the shadows around her pulsed, pulsing in time with her desperation. It felt like they were laughing, echoing her scream, feasting on her fear. Then something caught her attention, a glimmer on the floor beneath the rocking chair. She hesitated, but there was something undeniably calling her. Afraid but compelled, she dropped to her knees, brushing away the dust. Her fingers grazed a small silver key, its surface cold against her warm skin. Could this be the way out? The thought ignited a flicker of hope. She clutched the key tightly, rising to her feet, glancing toward the door as it rattled violently. The shadows lunged, their tendrils seeking her, as if the very cabin itself conspired against her. Desperation surged, and she dashed to the door, key in hand. Fumbling as her legs trembled, her breath caught in her throat, she inserted the key into the rusty lock. It clicked with a sound like thunder, echoing in the stillness around her. But as she turned it, the room began to shake violently, the walls quaking under the weight of an unseen force. The growling intensified, transforming into a cacophony of rage and desire. "Go, go!" she screamed at herself, twisting the key harder. The shadows writhed in fury, some curling into ghastly shapes, mouths opening wide as if to swallow her whole. Finally, the lock gave. In one swift, frantic motion she flung the door open, but her heart sank. It was not the outside she had hoped for. Instead, a vast, swirling abyss lay before her, an endless void beckoning her with dark arms. All around her, faces materialized, lost souls trapped in shadows, their mouths open in silent screams. She recognized some faces, the friends and loved ones who had consumed her thoughts. "No, please," she begged, their tortured expressions haunting her. "Join us," they whispered in unison, pulling her closer to the edge of despair. Sweat beaded on her forehead. She could feel the darkness clawing at her back now, strong fingers itching closer. "Not like this," Karen cried, suddenly realizing what the choice truly meant. It was not about saving herself. It was about saving others from the same fate of being devoured by the dark. "Vanessa!" she shouted desperately, her voice piercing through the abyss, hoping her friend could hear her. It was then she noticed a flicker of light from deep within the void. Just as she teetered on the brink of terror, the dark shapes hesitated, as if the light was a boundary they could not cross. "Save yourself," an echo pleaded from the mirror, intertwining with the wails of trapped souls. As she stood there, balancing on the precipice of salvation and damnation, a chilling thought swept over her. The key was not just for the door. It was for the heart of something much darker, a choice that would seal her fate. Would she plunge into the abyss and fight for Vanessa, or would she embrace the darkness and become its next echo? As she fought the urge to fall or flee, the shadows encroached, hunger growing insatiable. The moment pressed heavy, filled with decisions that could alter her fate and the fate of the souls depending on her. In that harrowing silence, she braced herself, knowing whatever choice she made, there would be no turning back. Could she break the cycle, or was she doomed to join the ranks of the lost? What choice would she make next? The flickering light in the abyss danced like a flame, its glow pulling Karen's gaze. It was warmth against the cold terror closing in around her. The shadows were relentless, but that light held a promise, of hope, of survival, of a friend she refused to abandon. "Vanessa!" she screamed again, her voice slicing through the chilling air like a knife. But the abyss didn't respond, only tightening its grip, pulling her closer to the gnashing maws of the damned. Each flicker of the light became a memory, a reminder of laughter shared, of moments spent together. She couldn't let that slip away. The choice loomed over her like a storm cloud. Fight or flight? Every heartbeat echoed that question, drowning out the snarls rising from the depths, the tortured cries blending into a symphony of despair. Suddenly, she could feel the cold fingers of the shadows scraping at her arms, dragging her toward the edge. She had to decide fast. "Is this how it ends?" she thought, grappling with the weight of her thoughts. The abyss called to her, a siren song whispering of surrender. The soft, alluring voice coiled around her mind like smoke. "Join us. Be free." Don't listen. The shadows wanted her. They wanted to feast on her soul, to pull her into their depths. And if that happened, what would become of Vanessa? Could she face the darkness alone, knowing her friend was still trapped? "I won't let you take her," Karen shouted defiantly. With newfound resolve, she felt her hands grip the key tighter. A thought flickered in her mind, a memory of the tales Vanessa had told her, stories of brave souls, of sacrifice, of light pushing back against darkness. The flicker from the abyss sparkled like a vision. If she could reach it, maybe there was a chance. With adrenaline surging, Karen lunged forward. The shadows recoiled, screeching as her foot broke past the threshold of the door. The moment her foot crossed the abyss's edge, the world shifted. The walls around her crumbled, encased in a wash of white luminescence. She stumbled, blinded by the light. And then she was somewhere else. The cabin was gone, transformed into a barren landscape filled with thick fog and twisted trees. An eerie silence enveloped her, replaced by a pulse that vibrated in the air around her, a heartbeat of fear, primal and threatening. Still clutching the key, she scanned the shimmering horizon for any sign of Vanessa. "Vanessa!" she called out again, voice echoing into the void. No answer. Only more silence and the relentless heartbeat. Was it her own? Or something far more sinister? Suddenly she heard it, a faint whimper through the fog. Hope erupted within her. She sprinted toward the sound, heart hammering against her ribcage, each step echoing like a gunshot in the stillness. But as she moved, the fog thickened, wrapping around her like chains intent on pulling her back. "Stay away from the edge," came Vanessa's voice, frantic and desperate. Karen's breath caught. It was too late. She realized the weight of her decision. She had crossed a line, somehow tethering herself to an unseen force. Be wary of the darkness she had fought, for it followed her now, slithering across the ground, insidious and hungry. "Vanessa," she called again, straining through the escalating fear. The heartbeat thumped louder, and now she felt it in her bones. As she strained her eyes against the fog, a faint silhouette pierced through. Vanessa stood there, pale-faced but defiant, her eyes wide with a mix of terror and hope. Then it hit her, a vision of what she had seen before. The face, constantly morphing, twisted with anguish and rage, emerged from the fog. A darkness far worse than the shadows in the cabin. It broke through like a tidal wave, and Karen's heart plummeted. "Run!" Vanessa screamed, but the pulse, no longer just a heartbeat, became a rhythmic thrumming, darkness drumming against their souls. Karen's mind raced. They were not safe, but they could fight. "Together!" she shouted, drawing on every ounce of courage she could muster. But as the shadowy figure stepped from the gloom, its eyes glistening with malice, she realized they had awakened something far more powerful than they could ever imagine. "Together?" it growled, mocking them. "Or will you join the chorus of the lost?" Time slowed as panic surged again. What if this darkness could take them both? What's the real cost of fighting back? In that moment, uncertainty washed over her. The final choice loomed closer than ever. But the shadows were relentless. What came next could change everything, for better or much, much worse. Would Karen follow through or fall back into darkness? Would they truly stand united against the forces of despair they had unwittingly unleashed? The specter moved closer, and she braced herself for battle, heart racing. Could they reclaim their destinies, or would they be lost forever? Karen's heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out the creature's sinister whispers. She stood firm beside Vanessa, shaking but resolute. The horror before them glided into view, its shape an ever-shifting mass of claws and teeth, eyes burning with a soul-piercing hunger. "Remember the stories," Vanessa whispered, her voice trembling. "Light. We need to find the light." But as if taunting them, the shadow loomed larger, its twisted mouth curling into a grotesque smile that promised despair and madness. "Light?" it echoed, mocking. "You think such a pitiful thing can save you from what you've unleashed?" True panic gripped Karen, but she felt the warmth of Vanessa's hand tighten around hers, an anchor against the chaos. "We have to move," she urged, pulling her friend deeper into the murky fog. The world was suffocating, thick as molasses, but Karen couldn't afford to stop. The echo of the heartbeat reverberated through the ground, synchronizing with their steps like a countdown to devastation. "Run!" Vanessa shouted again, and they sprinted through the suffocating mist, dodging grasping tendrils of darkness reaching out to snare them. Each second felt like a lifetime, the shadows clawing desperately, hungry for what they had to offer. "Look!" Karen pointed toward a faint glimmer in the distance, the teeniest pinprick of light hanging like a lone star in an endless void. It pulsed gently, beckoning them like a siren's call. "Vanessa, we can make it!" But the creature roared, a sound that sliced through the very fabric of the night. "You think you can escape? You belong to the abyss now!" "What does it want?" Karen panted, fear creeping into her thoughts, tangling with her resolve. "Something we don't understand," Vanessa replied, her face etched in determination. "But we can't let it win." The mist thickened, and they could barely see a foot in front of them. Fear coiled in Karen's stomach. It whispered doubts, urging her to retreat. "We can't hold it off forever," she gasped, darkness lapping at the edges of her consciousness. They stumbled forward, breath hitching in their throats, each step challenging the unseen pull of the abyss. The light flickered closer, but the shadow was relentless. It rushed up behind them, shelling out tendrils that danced at their heels, almost touching. "You will scream my name," it shrieked. "You will join the lost." "Not today," Karen yelled, channeling her rage. "Not ever." With a surge of energy, she tightened her grip around the key, and an instinct pulled her to turn. She raised it high, praying for it to glow, to give them a fighting chance. In that moment, the very essence of light exploded from the key, shining through the fog. Its brilliance pierced the darkness like a knife. Vanessa gasped. "It works. Keep going." The shadow shrieked, a chorus of wails echoing in the void, their world shaking under the weight of its fury. "You dare defy me?" But now it was losing ground, writhing as the light pushed against its form. Yet, even as it faltered, new pieces emerged, dark shapes crawling from the shadows, a legion awakened by their struggle. Karen's confidence wavered. They might have just awakened an entire army of terror. Her mind reeled, questioning their chance of survival. "We can't stop now," she urged. "Not with the light." "Then to the light!" Vanessa shouted back, the fervor lighting her eyes. Together they charged forward, hearts pounding in synchrony with the fading darkness behind them. But as they sprinted, the shadows hissed louder, their voices merging into a chilling symphony of despair. They won't survive the dawn. Just as they reached the brink of the radiance, a sound like breaking glass shattered through the air. It was their comfort, now chaotic. In that instant the light exploded around them, blinding and violent. As the brilliance settled, emerging from the scorched haze stood silhouettes of figures, lost souls suspended in darkness, eyes wide in eternal panic. "Watch the light dim," the entity hissed, curling its fingers as it began to twist reality around them. A shiver slithered down Karen's spine. "We have to fight them, but what if we lose?" Only silence acknowledged her question, but deep down, she knew the truth lingered. What other horrors awaited them? Was Wendy safe in the grips of shadows, or was she ensnared in the same fate that awaited Karen and Vanessa? One thing was clear. The battle had just begun, and the worst was yet to come. Karen stood there, panting, disoriented as shadows grappled for her cuffs, each whisper caressing her skin like mocking breath. The battlefield between light and darkness raged around her. Explosions of fear, confusion, and the desperate hope for salvation danced in the air heavy with smoke. The light flickered, a beacon, but every second brought the darkness closer, relentless, hungry. "Keep moving!" Vanessa shouted over the horrific sound of the roiling mass behind them. Fear visible in her eyes, she draped her hand over Karen's shoulder, and that connection steadied the chaotic whirlwind threatening to spiral them into despair. "We can't let them win!" Karen exclaimed, her voice rising above the roars of the shadows clinging to their heels. "Whatever they want, they can't have it." But doubt gnawed at her resolve. "What do they want?" she whispered, barely audible, the question hanging heavy between them. Every shadow bore witness to their fear, the dark shapes leaning in as if expecting an answer to unfold from her mind. Without skipping a beat, Vanessa reached into her pocket and pulled out a small mirror, a shard from their shared past filled with laughter and uncomplicated days. "Remember, light dispels darkness. It shines truth through lies." Karen's heart raced with the memory. "It's just a reflection," she murmured, but deep inside she felt something shifting. "It's more than that," Vanessa pressed, her voice fierce. "It's a reminder. Look beyond the mirror. Don't let the darkness claim your spirit." In that moment Karen's pulse quickened. She understood what Vanessa meant. The shadows were playing tricks, luring them down with fear. "Together, then?" Karen asked, her voice trembling but steadied by the warmth radiating from Vanessa's unwavering gaze. "Together," Vanessa affirmed firmly, squeezing her hand tightly once again. They pointed the shard of the mirror straight ahead. A sparkling glow threaded through the fog, illuminating their purpose as it reflected the burgeoning light of hope within. The mass of shadows surged forward, and chaos erupted. "Join the chorus of the lost." A deep growl reverberated through the air, but it fell flat against their rising chorus of defiance. With renewed determination, Karen shouted, "No, we're not lost!" The mirror's fragment shimmered, releasing a wave of fortified essence as both women stepped forward, pounding into the abyss before them. Each footfall echoed not just despair but pure resolve, a declaration of their survival. They surged, fueled by memories of love, laughter, and friendship, ignited like flames against consuming shadows. Suddenly, a break in the mist materialized, the glow intensifying as they advanced. "Over there!" Karen pointed ahead, where the outlines of a serene gallery glistened within the fog. It was stunning and warm, a realm of vibrant colors beckoning them forward. The shadows shrieked, rage crackling in the air. "You think you can escape?" "Together!" they shouted in unison, voices merging as the world around them began to dissolve. As they raced into the light, everything shifted. Colors exploded like fireworks, vibrant and alive, flooding their senses. It was a realm of bliss, but all around echoed the chilling lament of lost voices becoming fainter, receding like the tide. There was calm and chaos intertwined, and a moment of silence descended. The shadows faded, losing their grip, gnashing their teeth against the brilliance of the emerging dawn. Karen breathed deeply, feeling warmth flood every corner of her being. "We did it!" she cried, arms raising in triumph. But the murmurings of the shadows persisted, swirling just beyond reach. "You cannot hold us back," a whisper beckoned, faint yet chilling. "We are always here." Karen glanced back, and dread seeped into her chest. The dark figures were stretching and morphing, their forms lit up in the dark. "This isn't over," they howled, their cries echoing in a haunting symphony of despair. "Together?" Vanessa asked softly, glancing at Karen as shadows clawed desperately towards them. "Always," Karen affirmed, and in that moment she understood. Light and darkness coexisted in a delicate balance. It was not about erasing one for the other, but rather confronting the fear that fueled them. Hand in hand, they stepped together into the blinding light, destruction left behind. Beyond the haze of despair, they surged into a world anew, a vibrant living tapestry of hope made stronger in the battle they had chosen to fight. Together they had grasped light from shadow, awakening the promise that resilience and love could conquer the deepest, darkest nights. As the darkness receded, they took a deep breath, feeling the sun warm their skin, the weight lift from their hearts. They had faced fears, lost some, learned from others, but each battle forged a promise, binding them tighter. They paused, standing shoulder to shoulder, sisters in arms, warriors against the shadows. They would reignite the light that dwelled within every person, reminding them that even in the darkest of nights, hope could sparkle bright. "Forever," Vanessa smiled, her eyes reflecting the dawn. The promise of endless tomorrows, chasing the shadows into the depths where they belonged. Karen grinned back, strength blossoming in her chest. "And they will never take that from us," she promised. As they stepped forward into the unfolding day, friends at their side, they knew their journey had just begun. Do you want to be part of their incredible journey as they uncover more spine-chilling secrets? Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and support us. Flood the comments section with your reactions, thoughts, and theories about this conclusion. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this. Don't wait even one more second to spread the word. Only true fans understand how important this is.